A suspicious spike in Tesla sales has experts in the industry scratching their heads. It started with a deadline in January for Ottawa's rebate program on electric vehicles that allegedly prompted a mad rush to buy EVs.
$43 million in electric vehicle rebates frozen overnight. But this wasn't just a budget freeze. This was a full-scale political ambush. How did Elon Musk go from being hailed as a green pioneer to getting slapped with the label of market manipulator? And what if this is only the beginning? By the end of this video, you'll understand why Tesla's collapse could rewrite the electric future, and why what's coming next might just blindside the entire automotive industry. Keep watching, because the next twist, it's personal. Tesla's playbook, once considered genius, is now being dissected by investigators, mocked by governments, and torched in the court of public opinion. And here's the kicker, it all unraveled in a single weekend. You're not just watching a corporate scandal, you're watching a global empire lose control. Why did Canada turn Tesla into a public enemy? One car every 30 seconds. Tesla's weekend that backfired. In the days leading up to the freeze, Tesla boasted record-breaking dealership figures, claiming to have sold 8,753 electric vehicles in a single weekend. That astounding statistic, roughly one car every 30 seconds, should have been a headline-grabbing success story. Yet, alarm bells rang across the Canadian Automobile Dealers Association. Observers could not fathom how any manufacturer, even one as popular as Tesla, could legitimately post such lightning-fast sales. Rumors spread that the brand was stockpiling orders or reclassifying transactions to flood the incentive program with a tidal wave of claims. Officials in Ottawa launched a discreet fact-finding mission, scouring dealership records and cross-referencing buyer details. They uncovered identical addresses on multiple applications, odd financing structures, and purchase logs stamped mere minutes apart. While Tesla insisted every sale reflected genuine demand, the authorities saw enough red flags to pursue a formal probe. This revelation cast a shadow over the claimed weekend triumph, suggesting it might have been a strategic blitz rather than an organic surge. Windsor, long a champion of automotive innovation, turned into a battleground of public opinion. Some buyers felt they had been used as pawns in a numbers game designed to exploit incentives before funds ran out. Others believed Tesla was being singled out by overzealous regulators. Either way, the weekend no longer seemed like a pure victory. It became a glaring symbol of the tension between Tesla's aggressive tactics and Canada's determination to preserve a fair marketplace. Yet the drama was only beginning to unfold. In the aftermath, some economists speculated that this brazen weekend push might have been a frantic grab before upcoming changes to the rebate pool. If Tesla knew the funds were nearly depleted, it stood to gain tens of millions of dollars in subsidies by funneling everything into a narrow window. Either way, the ploy backfired spectacularly. Instead of celebrating a windfall, Tesla found itself in the crosshairs of a national probe. No matter how successful the brand had been in moving metal off the lot, the entire strategy seemed destined to blow up once federal inspectors arrived. And with that wild weekend behind them, Tesla had to figure out how to navigate a firestorm of questions and accusations about what really happened, how politics weaponized electric vehicle incentives. As the freeze threw Tesla into disarray, onlookers wondered if this was Ottawa's revenge for President Donald Trump's recent tariff assault, or the handiwork of Prime Minister Mark Carney, intent on shielding Canada's economy from outside pressure. In truth, it was both simpler and more intricate. The incentives were originally built to push consumers towards zero-emission vehicles, reflecting Canada's commitment to cleaner roads. Political insiders leaked accounts of cabinet meetings where ministers dissected Tesla's requests line by line. Carney's pragmatic stance, locking down the program to protect taxpayer money, coincided neatly with sending a message to Washington. If the United States president insisted on penalizing Canadian auto exports with 25% tariffs, Canada had every right to deny an American electric vehicle maker from draining national subsidies. Step by step, illusions of a cordial cross-border arrangement were dismantled. That tension burst into the open when Carney, flanked by advisors, declared that no company would be permitted to misuse federal programs. His tone suggested more than a mere bureaucratic correction. This was a reassertion of Canadian sovereignty in an escalating trade war. Overnight, Tesla transformed from a herald of eco-friendly progress into a perceived opportunistic foreign outfit too close to the White House. Media voices split over whether Carney was championing accountability or fueling a personal vendetta. Still, few could deny that electric vehicle incentives had morphed into a powerful geopolitical tool. The deeper questions about Tesla's tactics were about to surface in explosive fashion. As tensions flared, major American media outlets speculated on potential political undercurrents driving Carney's decisions. Some suggested that Canada was drawing a line in the sand, determined to show the world that it would not be bullied by Trump's blustering. Others saw a tactical genius at play, positioning Canada as a gatekeeper of ethical environmental funding. What seemed clear was that Tesla had unwittingly stepped into a perfect storm of international politics and local pride. The electric vehicle program had always been about steering drivers toward the future, but now it symbolized a new kind of trade battlefield. Just as the dust was starting to settle, the bigger picture came into focus. This was no longer just about electric cars. It was about power and politics. A compliance car scam? The hidden history behind Tesla's subsidy tactics. Long before this freeze, Tesla's exploitation of government incentives read like a manual for skirting regulations. In 2019, the company unveiled a stripped-down Model 3 priced just below Canada's rebate threshold. The range was compromised, but the ploy unlocked an avalanche of incentives. Critics called it a compliance car scam, accusing Tesla of bending the rules to extract millions from climate-focused programs. Supporters, however, hailed Elon Musk as a resourceful innovator. By 2025, the brand's tactics had grown bolder. Tesla timed each product surge to coincide with looming incentive deadlines, rapidly pushing vehicles into the market to claim the maximum amount possible. It worked until the suspicious weekend sale totals forced Canada's hand. Now, investigators are combing through every detail, revealing a pattern that could jeopardize Tesla's credibility far beyond Canadian borders. This crisis is not merely about losing funds. It threatens to recast Tesla as a profit-driven player, willing to manipulate well-intentioned policies. For devotees who once admired Musk's rebellious streak, a new concern has surfaced. Where does ingenuity end and exploitation begin? If the brand continues to walk this thin line, any short-term gains might crumble under the weight of long-term reputational damage. And as the dust settles on this compliance car saga, it is obvious that Tesla has far bigger battles ahead. No one knew whether Canada's clampdown would prompt other nations to revisit their own electric vehicle incentive structures. Still, industry insiders whispered that if Tesla's blueprint of borderline compliance worked once, it might have worked elsewhere. For regulators worldwide, this provided a blueprint of their own. Thorough investigation, swift action, and public accountability for any automaker that pushed the bounds of acceptable practice. As part one of this unfolding saga drew to a close, one truth remained certain. Tesla's clash with Canada was only the first domino to fall. It didn't take long for people to dig into Tesla's past moves, and what they found started raising even more eyebrows. Trump's tariffs ignite the North American auto meltdown. A single late-afternoon announcement from Donald Trump sent shockwaves through every corner of the North American auto industry. He declared a new 25% tariff on vehicles entering the United States from Canada, insisting it would bring back manufacturing jobs and make the nation less dependent on foreign supply chains. But that plan backfired the moment Canadian officials recognized the move as an economic assault. Within days, panic spread among parts suppliers, dealership owners, and union representatives who feared that rising production costs would force factories to scale down or close altogether. Major automakers had warned the administration that these tariffs would harm more than just Canadian producers. Almost every modern car, whether branded American or otherwise, depends on cross-border components. A typical sedan might contain transmissions assembled in Ontario, electronics sourced from Manitoba, and steel from Saskatchewan. By imposing a sudden extra levy, Trump had turned each of those parts into a financial liability. Prices rose so quickly that many potential buyers canceled new car orders, waiting to see if the chaos would resolve. As supply costs soared, ordinary people started to feel the pinch. In Michigan, workers in manufacturing plants reported that over time, hours were vanishing overnight. In Ohio, small businesses that handled aftermarket installations saw their profits dwindle. Dealerships across the Midwest began offering emergency discounts to keep unsold cars from piling up. None of these stopgaps could plug the gaping hole left by the tariffs. Though American officials insisted the crisis was temporary, consumer confidence nosedived. Some trade experts compared the damage to the aftermath of a natural disaster, except this time it was entirely man-made. By the end of the second week, Canada was already crafting its counterattack. Tesla, locked in a rebate war with Canadian authorities, emerged as the first high-profile casualty. Yet, industry insiders whispered that it would not be the last. But while Trump doubled down publicly, warning other nations not to interfere, an emergency meeting in Ottawa was about to change everything. From there, the story kept getting bigger. Tesla wasn't just dealing with Canadian regulators. The entire auto industry was bracing for impact. The cabinet emergency. Canada's late-night response to an economic assault. In a tense late-night gathering in Ottawa, Prime Minister Mark Carney summoned his top ministers under the flicker of corridor lights. They had been briefed on an unfolding crisis sparked by President Trump's shocking tariff decree. Economic data lay scattered across the conference table, charts of plummeting exports, panicked investors, and collapsing forecasts. The message was clear. A single misstep could ignite a long and devastating trade war. Carney, eyes locked on his cabinet, condemned Trump's move as a direct assault. Canada, he insisted, had to act swiftly, not only to shield domestic jobs, but to show the world it would not be bullied. Transport officials presented grim findings. Tesla's push for rebates, combined with the White House's aggressive tariff strategy, was suffocating Canada's auto industry. Thousands of manufacturing jobs, from Windsor to Vancouver, were at immediate risk. Tensions soared as ministers debated whether to take a hardline stance or pursue diplomacy. By midnight, the group reached consensus on a bold Phase 1 response. For decades, Canada leaned on diplomacy, but Carney declared that time was over. Tesla would be cut off from further incentives. New restrictions would target critical U.S. carmakers relying on Canadian raw materials. One senior minister summed up the moment. If they want a tariff war, they'll get one, but on our terms. By dawn, the retaliation plan was locked. It wasn't about revenge. It was about national survival. Hours later, news of Canada's abrupt countermeasures rattled markets from Frankfurt to São Paulo. Suddenly, it was no longer a U.S.-Canada disagreement. This was a seismic confrontation threatening the very structure of North American trade. EU, Brazil, Mexico. The entire world sides with Canada. International reaction came fast, and it came loud. The European Union condemned Trump's tariffs as reckless and destabilizing. European Commission officials pledged support for Ottawa, hinting at a broader coalition to slap synchronized penalties on key American exports. What began as a bilateral fight now threatened to balloon into a full-scale global trade conflict. In Brazil, officials blasted Trump's isolationist approach, arguing that his willingness to punish Canada showed no country was safe. Though Brazil was not a major car exporter to the U.S., its leaders took the signal seriously. Brazilian auto suppliers began negotiating directly with Canada and Europe, bypassing the U.S. entirely. That move set off alarm bells across global supply chains, with entire networks threatening to shift if the conflict dragged on. Mexico's reaction was immediate and personal. Having clashed with Washington in the past, Mexican leaders saw in Canada a rare opportunity for regional unity. Talks began about forming a joint North and South American trade bloc built on fair trade principles, one that could operate independently of U.S. interference. Mexican business leaders even hosted summits to discuss rerouting supply chains through Canada and Central America, minimizing exposure to U.S. tariffs. Across the Atlantic, major automakers raised alarms. With factories and profits tied to North American stability, any disruption risked billions. Some companies slashed their 2025 growth forecasts, unwilling to bet on an unstable U.S. trade policy. In headlines from Paris to Berlin, Trump's move was branded not as protectionism, but as provocation. As Canada gained allies, Tesla began to unravel. One of its fastest-growing markets had turned hostile, and with the world watching, Elon Musk's empire braced for a financial reckoning. Tesla's shares collapse as global markets panic. Only a few months prior, Tesla had been riding high on global optimism. Its electric vehicles symbolized environmental progress and visionary leadership. That reputation crumbled the instant Canada slammed the door on Tesla's rebate applications. Investors saw a warning sign. If an EV darling could be shut out in a top-tier market, what else might happen once other governments took cues from Ottawa? Shares of Tesla plunged on consecutive trading days, wiping out billions of dollars in market capitalization. Across the Atlantic, European financial institutions downgraded Tesla's growth projections, citing rising uncertainty from the North American trade conflict. In Asia, tech-heavy indexes mirrored the downturn. Rumors swirled that institutional funds were trimming their Tesla positions. unwilling to risk further volatility triggered by political maneuvering. Elon Musk's public statements fanned the flames. He posted lengthy critiques of Canadian policy, claiming the ban stemmed from political vengeance fueled by Trump's tariffs. Yet his comments did little to reassure wary traders. Some read it as a sign that Musk had become too entangled with Washington's brinkmanship, tarnishing the brand's once futuristic allure. Meanwhile, short sellers who had been skeptical about Tesla's lofty valuations seized their chance, amplifying negative sentiment and raking in profits while the stock slid. The panic spread beyond Tesla. Other electric vehicle newcomers felt aftershocks as analysts questioned whether government incentives might become weapons in future trade disputes. Startups in California, China, and Europe struggled to secure funding rounds that had seemed guaranteed only weeks earlier. A sense of foreboding swept through boardrooms around the world. If Tesla, the industry titan, could fall this swiftly, no automotive enterprise was safe from diplomatic crossfire. Yet, even as the markets reeled, every move by Canada's leadership suggested they would press on without compromise. The deeper question for Tesla was simple. Could the company overhaul its approach fast enough to survive both the ban and the broader trade upheaval unleashed by Trump's tariffs? Everything indicated that a far greater crisis was looming, one that would stretch well beyond a single automaker. But before we talk about that, hit the subscribe button so you could support us for free. Thanks. The Europe crash, Tesla's image implodes overseas. It began as a subtle undercurrent in Germany, then exploded into a continental crisis that few anticipated. The moment Elon Musk publicly signaled support for a far-right political figure, news outlets across Europe seized on it, igniting fierce debate over Tesla's values. By the time 2025 arrived, local journalists were publishing damning exposés on Musk's entanglements with controversial groups, painting a picture of a chief executive who mixed business ambition with polarizing ideologies. For European consumers who had once viewed Tesla as the pinnacle of innovation, this was more than unsettling. It felt like a betrayal of trust. The fallout stretched far beyond newspaper headlines. In the United Kingdom, consumer advocacy organizations began calling for a deeper look into Tesla's labor practices and corporate ethics. Soon, petitions circulated demanding parliamentary hearings on foreign electric vehicle manufacturers, potentially influencing political outcomes. Critics argued that a company leading the transition to sustainable mobility ought to embody environmental responsibility and social harmony, not brush elbows with extremist politics. Tesla's defenders countered that Musk's personal opinions should not overshadow the company's groundbreaking achievements in electric vehicle design. But the damage was already done. Sales in major European capitals dipped noticeably, and Tesla's once shiny brand took a hit that no marketing campaign could reverse overnight. German automotive circles, always protective of their homegrown industry, used the controversy to rally more support for local electric vehicle initiatives. Home-based manufacturers touted their ability to deliver luxury and performance without the baggage of inflammatory leadership. It did not help that China's emerging electric vehicle powerhouses were also moving aggressively into Europe, offering lower-priced models in markets where Tesla had reigned supreme. For the first time, it seemed as if Tesla's dominance could be toppled, not by a single competitor, but by a tidal wave of smaller yet determined challengers. The Europe crash was more than a public relations nightmare. It crystallized how swiftly fortunes could turn for a foreign automaker perceived to be meddling in domestic social issues. If Tesla wanted to reclaim its goodwill in Europe, it needed a dramatic shift, fast. That possibility, however, seemed less likely as another, more personal crisis loomed over its founder back in North America, fueling a deeper backlash that would test the company's stability. Elon Musk's political ties backfire, and Tesla pays the price. Elon Musk cultivated the image of a boundary-pushing entrepreneur who knew how to court powerful allies. His close relationship with Donald Trump was never a secret. Musk had seen the partnership as a strategic advantage, hoping that having a direct line to the White House might fast-track regulatory approvals and secure the spotlight for Tesla's ambitious projects. That partnership, however, became the fuse that lit a broader consumer revolt in 2025. It all started when Musk publicly endorsed a a set of controversial tariffs aimed at punishing Canada for trade imbalances, a move that placed him squarely in Trump's political camp. That endorsement might have gone unnoticed had it not coincided with Canada's abrupt decision to ban Tesla from its electric vehicle incentive programs. The link between Musk's open support for protectionist policies and Canada's retaliatory strike was too juicy for media outlets to ignore. Overnight, Tesla went from being the golden child of clean energy to a symbol of political cronyism. Commentators pointed out that Musk's repeated forays into politically charged topics were undermining Tesla's core brand message of forward-thinking innovation. The backlash intensified as community leaders in Canadian cities voiced their frustration with what they saw as Tesla's complicity in a trade war that threatened local jobs. Social media campaigns urged consumers to stop purchasing Tesla vehicles, and influential voices amplified the notion that Musk was prioritizing personal power over cross-border cooperation. Within days, brand sentiment surveys in North America dipped to new lows, with many prospective buyers hesitating to invest in a company so visibly entangled in a divisive political saga. Even more damaging, global publications rekindled stories of Musk's past endorsements that leaned toward fringe politics in Europe, portraying him as a billionaire out of touch with everyday realities. Skeptics who had long criticized Tesla's lofty promises suddenly found an attentive audience. Investors watched nervously as Tesla's share price showed greater volatility, spurred by waves of negative headlines that felt relentless. While Musk tried to defend himself on social platforms, those efforts came across as reactive, further exacerbating the narrative that the chief executive's political gambles were sabotaging his own enterprise. Yet the real sign of trouble was still taking shape at ground level. As media drama swirled, disillusioned groups across several Canadian provinces were turning their anger into action, sparking demonstrations that the world had never seen directed at a single automobile manufacturer. Vandalism, protests, and boycotts. The new anti-Tesla movement. It started with a streak of red paint across a Tesla showroom window in Ontario, then escalated into something much larger and more organized. Within hours, social media posts from the scene showed row after row of Tesla vehicles, with deflated tires and scratched body panels. What at first appeared to be random vandalism soon revealed itself as part of a coordinated protest movement, outraged by Canada's economic skirmish with the United States and Elon Musk's alliances. The energy behind these demonstrations transcended simple property damage. In Montreal, activists assembled a dramatic sit-in at a Tesla delivery center, holding signs that read, "No tax dollars for your political games." They blocked entrances, disrupted scheduled test drives, and engaged in heated discussions with Tesla staff. Traditional automotive dealerships, sensing an opportunity, quietly whispered to potential customers that investing in Tesla now was risky. Even those previously uninterested in international trade politics found themselves asking whether Tesla was the right choice, given the intensifying rhetoric against its leadership. Organizers framed these protests as a stance against corporate meddling in sovereign policy, claiming that Musk had tried to influence governmental decisions for personal gain. Many who participated in these demonstrations were not typical activists. They included laid-off assembly plant workers frustrated by what they viewed as a double standard, Tesla and Trump enforcing policies that put Canadian livelihoods at risk while appearing to exploit loopholes in the country's incentive system. College students also joined, fueled by environmental convictions, but disillusioned that Tesla's green credentials seemed overshadowed by political controversy. The broader social narrative was clear. Tesla's identity was no longer purely about sustainability and technological edge. It was now inextricably linked to messy diplomatic crossfire. The movement proved resilient, with organizers promising rolling boycotts until Tesla publicly distanced itself from Trump's antagonistic stance. Although some critics dismissed the demonstrations as flashes of impulsive anger, the sheer scale of the vandalism and the rising calls for local governments to intervene spoke to a deeper trend. Consumer discontent had evolved into full-on rebellion. Tesla, once exalted as a climate savior, was under siege by the very people who might otherwise have been its greatest supporters. Tesla's U.S. sales are falling, and China's EVs are taking over. As anti-Tesla sentiment exploded in Canada, a parallel crisis was unfolding at home in the United States. For the longest time, Tesla maintained a robust foothold in the American market, buoyed by a loyal fan base and the magnetic charisma of Elon Musk. By 2025, however, signs of fatigue were evident. Sales data in states like California and New York showed a noticeable dip, just as domestic rivals stepped up with fresh electric vehicle offerings of their own. Even more concerning, Chinese brands, once dismissed as underdogs, were creeping into the conversation with aggressive pricing and improving quality. In places like Texas, dealerships reported a steady uptick in interest for newcomers out of Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Hangzhou. Electric sedan models from Build Your Dreams, also known as BYD and NIO, offered competitive range and sleek design at thousands of dollars below Tesla's typical price point. Consumers who had once felt obligated to choose Tesla for its blend of performance and cutting-edge flair were now weighing whether a Chinese electric vehicle might be just as stylish and far less expensive. American auto experts pointed to a convergence of factors that spelled trouble for Tesla. The political fallout involving Canada tarnished its brand image. Meanwhile, Elon Musk's repeated public disputes over trade and tariffs made mainstream buyers wary of potential price spikes or supply chain hiccups. Finally, the Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers capitalized on the chaos, stepping in with proactive marketing campaigns and a new wave of direct-to-consumer test drives, showing that their vehicles were no longer second-rate knockoffs, but genuine competitors. What stung most was the realization that Tesla's share of the electric vehicle market in the United States had started to shrink for the first time in years. Ambitious new government regulations demanded more affordable clean cars, and the Chinese brands were ready to meet that challenge. Tesla, preoccupied with damage control across several continents, seemed behind the curve. Analysts who once cheered Musk's boldness now wondered if the company's leadership had spread itself too thin, courting unnecessary battles rather than focusing on product strategy. As American consumers gravitated to alternatives, the harsh truth emerged. Tesla's unstoppable momentum was no longer guaranteed. And in the face of a worldwide backlash, the company's position felt more fragile than ever. Can Tesla sue Canada? The legal minefield ahead. Elon Musk is no stranger to controversy, but this time he faces a challenge on a new battlefield, the courtroom. As Canada's government freezes millions of dollars in electric vehicle rebates, Tesla finds itself locked out of lucrative incentives that were once a reliable boost to its bottom line. Musk has never been shy about taking his battles public. Rumors swirl that he's considering a bold legal move to reclaim those funds. However, the path forward is anything but clear. International trade law often tilts in favor of established frameworks, and Canada's decision to halt payments is backed by claims of system abuse and manipulation. Legal experts argue that proving Canada acted in bad faith or violated international agreements would be an uphill climb. Tesla would need to present irrefutable evidence that the allegations of system manipulation are unfounded, all while navigating the complex web of bilateral trade agreements and international arbitration panels. The stakes are high. A prolonged legal fight could tarnish Tesla's brand image, alienate consumers, and distract the company from its core mission of expanding the electric vehicle market. But for Musk, the decision is personal. He's a fighter by nature, and if there's even a sliver of a chance to overturn the ruling, he may just take it. Still, as the legal teams prepare their argument, the question remains, is this a fight Tesla can win? The collapse of the global EV alliance, once hailed as a unifying force in the transition to electric vehicles, Tesla now finds itself standing apart from a movement it once led. The global electric vehicle industry has seen a surge of collaboration and innovation in recent years, with automakers working together to lower costs, standardize charging infrastructure, and push electrification into the mainstream. Tesla, once the darling of the industry, is suddenly isolated. In the wake of Canada's decision, competitors like Ford, Build Your Dreams, and Volkswagen are seizing the moment. While Tesla grapples with frozen rebates and legal uncertainty, these manufacturers are forming strategic partnerships, introducing cutting-edge models, and steadily increasing their market share. Joint ventures between traditional automakers and emerging players are accelerating battery development, ensuring a steady supply of critical materials, and creating charging networks that rival Tesla's once dominant supercharger system. What's more, Many of these companies have won the confidence of governments around the world, earning incentives and subsidies that now elude Tesla. It's not just about losing a financial edge. Tesla's reputation as the industry leader is slipping. The collaborative spirit that once defined the global electric vehicle push now belongs to its competitor. Tesla's former allies have moved on, leaving Musk and his company to navigate an increasingly hostile and competitive landscape. The question now isn't just how Tesla will recover, but whether it can ever regain its former standing in a market that's grown beyond it. Canada's new industrial plan, a future without Tesla. With Tesla out of the picture, Canada is taking bold steps to secure its place in the green energy economy. The removal of Tesla from its incentive programs is more than just a regulatory move. It's part of a larger strategy to reimagine Canada's industrial future. By prioritizing homegrown electric vehicle production, renewable energy initiatives, and advanced manufacturing technologies, Canada is carving out a path that no longer relies on Tesla's dominance. Government officials have made it clear that the focus is now on fostering domestic brands, creating sustainable supply chains, and attracting new players who align with Canada's vision of clean energy leadership. Investments in battery recycling facilities, renewable energy infrastructure, and training programs for a new generation of green industry workers are well underway. Provinces are rolling out their own incentives to encourage the development of locally produced electric vehicles, shifting the market away from dependence on a single global brand. This strategy isn't just about punishing Tesla. It's about building a resilient, independent industrial base that can thrive in a shifting global economy. As Canada's new plan takes shape, the absence of Tesla isn't just a gap to fill. It's an opportunity to redefine the future of green industry on Canada's own terms. The end of Tesla's golden age. For Tesla, the golden age may be over. The company that once stood at the forefront of a global energy revolution now faces a future filled with uncertainty. The challenges it currently faces, from frozen incentives in Canada to intensified competition in Europe and China, signal a turning point. Investors, once bullish on Tesla's unchallenged dominance, are now questioning the company's resilience. With market share slipping, supply chain costs rising, and regulatory headwinds intensifying, Tesla is no longer the invincible force it once appeared to be. But Elon Musk has never been one to back down from a fight. If anyone can lead a comeback, it's him. The question is whether the path forward will demand more than even he can deliver. The automotive landscape is more crowded than ever, and rivals who once lagged behind are now on the cutting edge of technology, production efficiency, and government support. Tesla's innovative spirit and loyal customer base remain strong assets, but they may not be enough to sustain the company through the storms ahead. The end of Tesla's golden age doesn't necessarily mean the end of Tesla itself. It may mean a more humble, more strategic Tesla, one that has to fight for every inch of market share, rebuild trust in its brand, and find new ways to lead in an industry that's rapidly outgrowing its original pioneer. But what do you think? Let's know in the comments. Thanks.